Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to the Rattlecast, we're the biggest freewheeling live streaming poetry podcast on the planet, in your ear and on your laptops. For episode number 292, our guest is Leon Lee. He'll be with us in just a few minutes. Before we get into say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this because we love poetry. I know you do too, so please do click on the like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring that bell for notifications. Whatever you can do to help spread poetry around the internet would be much appreciated. Now, before we begin with our main guest, we're going to talk to our Poet Respond poet, as we always do. And Carrie Jane Bond is here. Hey, Carrie, how you doing?
Hi, Tim. How are you? It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's so glad to see you. As we were talking about before, it's fraught times, and this is one of those poems about those fraught times. Can you let us know how this poem came to be and why you were thinking about this topic?
Well, number one, I'm a teacher and I work with kids, and given what's going on with immigration in our country right now and how the administration is reacting in ways that are really ways that I consider harsh and kind of terrifying for certain populations. So we've seen that, affecting the kids that I work with, and then just, the so that's the topic, but the poem itself, I'm just in a weekly writing group that I've been in since before COVID, and it kind of started with an exercise. And then as the news built and, especially this week, there have been so many stories about families deported, children being deported who are citizens, which was kind of the impetus for, taking what I had started and crafting it into this poem.
Yeah, and how what was your entry point into this? It's so hard. We talk about very often how difficult it is to turn current events and things that both are politically charged and that we care about into like real poetry that explores and moves into a more complicated space. How did you find a way to enter this poem and get that that element of creativity rather than just having your feelings out directly?
Yeah, I mean it is really hard, and I've tried I've tried submitting before, and I find that trying to write in response to the news can be really difficult because it the effort becomes really obvious in the poem, or at least I felt that was true with mine. So I think with this one, it really helped. For some reason, I just started with the circular imagery, and that was really part of this exercise that we were working through. And then I started to notice how much that came up with this issue. I mean, there are circles everywhere, and there are just circles everywhere in this idea. Like our minds spinning. And then I think once I sort of fastened onto the idea of the doorknob rattling, and that idea of kind of fear. And I think there is kind of a sense of fear in this poem. And then just anyway, so playing off that circular imagery or a lot of the round, which I'm sure you noticed. um, then I was more focused on just creating the poem and not trying to say something, and it just
Mhm.
came a little more easily that way.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful poem. Why don't you go ahead and read it for us now?
Okay. Round them up. Cheerios, dinner plates, wedding rings, teapots and targets, eyes on the circumference of your wrist, on a round table in my classroom with broken chairs, the globe. Holes punched in the left margin, being left at the margins, not knowing. Will knuckles rattle their doors, their shiny knobs bright like that once new promise of America? Her torch blazes in the noonday sun, before, during, after the election, from the island where she stands, with eyes hooded and low, ever watching over rough waters. I tell this mother on the phone from our classroom, cord curling round my fingers, we will do our best. They can stand out there and press the doorbell, ring forever for all we care. I am not worried, she assures me, yet there is no list it is safe to be on, everything being less sure. She is less assured now, the news rolling on a 24-hour cycle. A knock at the door is a knock in their hearts. thoughts spinning round and round, like the vultures turning, silent above the wide open plain.
Yeah, beautiful poem. Once again, that was today's poem on rattle.com, Round Them Up by Carrie Jane Bond. Carrie, thanks so much for being here as a guest and sharing that poem with us and all of our readers. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks.
it.
Yeah. Once again, that was Carrie Jane Bond. That was the Poets Respond poem for this week. Every Sunday, we publish a poem about current events. If you'd like to submit your own, go to rattle.com/page/respond. You can find the submission portal there. Get your poem in by Sunday night at midnight, and we can have it considered for the Sunday poem. And then we have you on the Rattlecast too, of course. So go ahead and do that. It's just so important to write poetry all the time, but especially these times, whatever this time is. So thanks so much for doing that. Now, we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Li-Young Lee. So sit tight, and we'll be right back with more poetry.
Can you hear these doves?
No, I can't. That's good. Yeah. And we're back. Like I said, today's guest is Li-Young Lee. Li-Young is the author of 6 books of poetry, most recently The Invention of the Darling, which is right here. A collection of his new and selected mother poems, I Asked My Mother to Sing, is out this summer from Wesleyan University Press. He's received many honors for his writing, including the 2024 Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize, a Lannan Literary Award, a Whiting Award, the American Book Award, and more. He lives in Chicago, where he comes from right now. Here he is, Li-Young Lee. Hey, Li-Young, how you doing?
Hi, Tim. I'm well. How are you?
I'm great, and it's such a pleasure to have you on. I think I mentioned to you that the first poem we're going to have you read, Seven Happy Endings, to this day is still one of my favorite poems of the 5,000 we've ever published. I love it so much, and I've always loved your work. I was talking to my mom earlier, too, because the first poetry reading that either of us ever went to was your reading at the University of Rochester. I think it was probably James Longenbach that invited you. I was a freshman, and you read there. I brought my mom because I was having dinner with her that night. And you're one of the reasons why I fell in love with poetry. So it's such a pleasure to have you and get to talk to you again.
Thank you, Tim.
Do you want to start reading that poem, Seven Happy Endings?
Sure. 7 happy endings. Love, after talking all night, where are we? Where did we begin? I needed to name this, needed to know what we meant when we said we, when we said us, when we said this. I wanted to call it something. Shadows on the garden wall, a man rowing alone out to sea, 7 happy endings. And you were happy with 2 rooms and a door to divide them, and daylight on either side of the door. Borrowed music from an upstairs room, and bells from down the street to urge our salty hearts. But I woke up one night and realized I was falling. I turned on the lamp, and the lamp was falling. And the hand that turned on the lamp was falling, and the light was falling, and everything the light touched, falling, and you were falling, asleep beside me. And that was the first happy ending. And the last one, it went something like this. A child sat down, opened a book, and began to read. And what he read out loud came to pass. And what he kept to himself stayed on the other side of the mountains. But I promised 7 happy endings. I who know nothing about endings. I who am always at the beginning of everything. Even as our being together always feels like beginning. Not just the beginning of our knowing each other, but the beginning of reality itself. See how you and I make this room so quiet with our presence. With every word we say, the room grows quieter. With every word we keep ourselves from speaking, even quieter. And now I don't know where we are, still needing to call it something. The fountain's water ringing the lip of the rock. A clock the bees unearth, gathering the overspilled minutes.
Yeah, and that was 7 Happy Endings by Liyoung Lee. And do you remember, Liyoung, so as I understand it, and this was before I was editor of Rattle, it was Stella Sue Lee and Alan Fox, and you interviewed with them in 2005, I guess it would have been. And, or no, I guess earlier than that, 2003. And you mentioned having woken up in the middle of the night and written, from a dream, or you couldn't sleep, and writing this poem, or starting this poem anyway. And I've always wondered how often that happens, and the way that, because we're always writing toward something that's sort of beyond ourselves. And we're also always dreaming into that beyond ourselves. It's trying to tell us something, as the poem mentions. How often do poems and dreams intersect for you like that? I've always wondered about that, especially considering this poem.
Yeah, I think for me, they intersect a lot. It seems to me that, Tim, that poetic consciousness, I'm convinced poetic consciousness is the most comprehensive consciousness we have. That would mean that it accounts for all the different levels of consciousness and even the unconscious. It somehow opens doors to the unconscious and lets things bubble up, or we invite things, and we enter that dreaming state willingly. So it's kind of like, it's kind of being awake while you're dreaming, or dreaming while you're awake, or something like that. There's a contradictory nature. Tim, I've been thinking about this. There's something inherently paradoxical or contradictory about poetic consciousness. And this poem, as I was reading it, I remember I'm still struggling with what the poem is trying to say. It says, I'm always at the beginning. I don't know anything about endings. It's trying to name something. So it seems to me, Tim, that I'm convinced that poetry is upstream of everything. It's upstream of reality. So there's something about poetry that it's at the beginning of everything. In the beginning was the word, right? In the beginning. I'm convinced that the universe is a giant poem. And there are ways to understand it, scientifically or mathematically or chemically, but all of them seem poverty-stricken to me. And poetry seems to be, to my mind, the most accessible or the most comprehensive understanding of poetry. At the same time, I feel as if poetry is the omega. It's at the omega end, too. It's not only the alpha end, it's the omega end, and it's the summation of everything. It's everything accounted for. It's all the opposites of reality reconciled. So there's something about poetry, it seems to me, that has to do with beginnings and endings, and it makes it apocalyptic.
Mm-hmm.
I think now I do see myself as in a kind of tradition of the prophetic poetry as it was handed down through in Western culture, in the English language, through the biblical tradition and through Dante and Shakespeare and Whitman and Dickinson. They seem to me all prophetic poets, and they all inhabit this kind of alpha and omega. They're upstream of everything on the one hand, and they're downstream of everything. They reconcile all of the all of the fraught things, all of the contradictory, paradoxical mysteries, that somehow poetry exists at the beginning and the ending. At the same time, this poem is so much about naming. It's trying to name this relationship, this marriage or this love, and it seems to me that poetry is the deepest way to name anything because ultimately, I don't think we know what counts unless we name it. You know, I think poetry is the most intense counted language, right? We count syllables, we count stanzas, we count the number of words, we count stresses, we count, sentences per line, line per sentence. I mean, the count, I think, in poetry is so high, it's so insanely granular. But I think that's because, for instance, let's think of it this way. If you told me to count all the maple trees in my neighborhood, if I know what a maple tree is, I would go out and I would start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But at the base of that counting, of the numerical counting, I'm actually naming, right? I'm saying maple tree, maple tree, maple tree, not maple tree, not maple tree, maple tree. So naming is at the very root of counting. And it seems to me that poetry is a radical way to name. And it's the most, it's the way we know what counts.
Mm-hmm.
So this poem seems to me obsessed with naming, counting, 7 happy endings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And beginnings and endings. And so I think this poem is my failed way to try to account for all those 3, what do you want to call them? Impulses in poetry, to count, to name, to inhabit the alpha and the omega. Yeah, so
Yeah, well, I think you're getting, right at the top of the show to the root of the spiritual practice that is poetry. I mentioned already at the U of R, University of Rochester, is where I saw you first, and I always found the undergraduate literary magazine there was called Logos. And I always thought that was the best name for a literary magazine because that is really, what we're doing is somehow that, and your father was a minister. And so, obviously you're intimately familiar with those concepts, but the naming of the animals and all the things in the universe and the way that is somehow our human mission, and that poetry becomes that mission to create somehow the word of God or there's something deep inside there that we're all doing. And so when we're called to it, it's on a real spiritual level, whether or not we, depending on which, religion and spirits we follow, it's still some kind of deep inner drive to do that mission of the Logos, I think. And so is there I don't know, what do you think about that, about the way that's the human endeavor somehow, and that's what we're doing as poets?
yeah, absolutely, Tim. I'm convinced the more I do this, the more I realize there are, the Logos, Heraclitus defined it as the strife and harmony of opposites. The Chinese called the Logos the Tao. The Tao is the structure and dynamics of opposites. It's the same thing, you know. And there are these obvious patterns we enter into, that we engage when we write poetry or when we read it. And there's something about these patterns that are inherently paradoxical and contradictory. I mean, right off the bat, Tim, you know, we write verse, right? Verse means to turn, right? So the poem turns and turns and turns to create a spiral. So every poem is a spiral. And we know, you know, Fibonacci told us that the spiral is inherent in everything, in an ocean wave, in pine cones, in sunflowers. I have a notion, Tim, I have a suspicion that interest itself, attention itself is spirical. You know, we say we go down a rabbit hole, right? There's something spirical. Is it such a word, spirical, spherical? But there's something spirical about attention itself. So the spiral is the fingerprint of God, you could say. It's everywhere. So the minute we enter into this spiral of the poem, the verse turning and turning and turning, I think we're entering into the mind of God, you know. That would be the spiral pattern. But then there's the tragic pattern in poetry, because all poems are the musical score for the dying breath. The tragic pattern says that all verbal meaning is made at the expense of breath, at the expense of vitality, at the expense of life, because all verbal meaning is carried on the dying breath. You can't breathe in and talk at the same time. You have to breathe out and talk. That dying breath, I think when the poet engages the dying breath, trying to ransom that tragic pattern by packing as much meaning as possible into the dying breath, it's a way to become conscious of your own dying and death, and thereby being more fully alive. As long as we're unconscious of our dying, we're not quite fully alive. But the minute we become conscious of our dying, we become fully alive. Now, this is kind of articulated in the prophetic tradition handed down to us through the biblical, the Judeo-Christian tradition, where they say death tramples death in the case of the Messiah. So you see that being conscious of death, you become more fully alive, you know. So there's those two patterns, but then there's sentence patterns we use, right? Syntax is sentence pattern. So we enter into the spiral, we enter into the tragic pattern, we enter into the sentence patterns, but then there's this other pattern, and that's the structure of definitions. The structure of definition, the troubadours understood this, that as a paradigm for the beloved, and they understood it as a paradigm for the mortal's relationship to the divine. And the structure of definition says that the word being defined must not appear in any of the definitions. You know, when you look at a dictionary, right? You're not allowed to use the word being defined. You're not allowed to use that word in the definitions. And yet, every word in the definitions, every period, every comma, every semicolon in the definitions get their meaning and their being and their significance by the absent word. The troubadours said this is the paradigm of true love as it is given to us in the New Testament. That's the way they understood it, that the beloved must never appear. In fact, if the word appears, the definitions are nullified. So when Lancelot and Guinevere get together, the world comes to an end. When the Messiah appears, worlds end. You know, the old world of the ruling class ends when the word, the logos, actually appears. in the New Testament. It's this tension between the beloved and the lover, right? The lover has to accept that he or she gets their entire meaning and being, their reason for being at all from the absent beloved. And it's out of that they invented the sonnet, you know. Tim, this is Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day, Tim. The sonnet was invented by a woman. It was not invented by a man. And I don't know why. Yeah, we've lost this knowledge, but it was invented to honor the divine feminine, the maternal, hence the number 14, I think we've lost this knowledge, The practice of the sonnet, scholars probably know this. I'm stating the obvious to them, but maybe there are some people out there who might be interested who don't know this. But it was invented by a woman in about 1000 AD, and it was used as a challenge to a prospective suitor. A prospective suitor had to prove to the beloved that he was serious about his love for her. He had to demonstrate his understanding and his appreciation of the divine feminine, of the divine maternal, hence the number 14. It's the reason the sonnet has 14 lines, and that can't be fudged. I think we can do away with the rhymes, we can do away with the iambic pentameter, but we can't do away with the number 14. It's the same reason we celebrate Valentine's Day, the love holiday, the love holy day, on the 14th of February. Because February has 28 or 29 days, and we celebrate it on the 14th. The number 14 and the number 48 are sacred fertility feminine numbers. They're the numbers of the fertility cycle. They're also the numbers that have to do with the lunar cycle. But interestingly enough, the person who invented this sonnet saw it as deeply embedded in the biblical tradition. There's 14 generations from Abraham to the poet David, and from the poet David to the destruction of the temple is 14 generations. And from the destruction of the temple to the Messiah is 14 generations. So the inventor of the sonnet wanted to know if we, the writers of the sonnet, understand the sacred, the holy nature of the divine fecundating power, the divine fertility, the divine maternal in the universe. So she envisioned this turning, this 14-chambered nautilus that was a model for the sacred womb. She wanted to know if the writer of the sonnet knew that. She wanted to know if the writer of the sonnet understood the profundity of the number 14. So it seems to me that since it's Mother's Day, it's interesting to think about the sonnet. We have in our tradition, in the English poetic tradition, this form that was specifically invented to encapsulate or to understand the significance of the mother, the womb, the sacred womb, the universe. Now, I recently translated the Tao Te Ching with a beautiful, wonderful poet. Her name is Yun Wang. She's a brilliant NASA scientist. She just got some huge millions of dollars dumped on her to study dark matter. She's just a brilliant poet in her own right. And we translated the Tao Te Ching together. And may I read something? Oh, I didn't bring it.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, I don't have it here. Darn. But the whole Tao Te Ching, Tim, it keeps talking about the divine feminine. the fecundating power of the divine feminine. It just blows my mind. Um, the ancients knew something about this.
Hmm.
I really regret not having it here with me, but
Yeah. Well, the poem that we have next is a sonnet, just like you're talking about, and a perfect topic too. It's the title poem of this new collection of mother poems. I asked my mother to sing. Do you want to
right.
read that now?
Sure, sure. You know, this poem, I I was aware of this when I was writing this poem. I'm not sure it's God-bearing. There's this idea, the person who invented this sonnet thought because of the spiracle nature of poetry, and because the spiral is the thumbprint of God, that all poems are God-bearing or God-revealing or divine. If you don't like the word God, what is it? Divine bearing, divinity bearing, or divinity revealing. I'm not sure I accomplished it here. Uh, yeah, I asked my mother to sing, but I was aware of it, and I was trying to navigate all of these conditions of the sonnet. Um, yeah, that it had to enact the sacred womb, that it had to enact the spiral, and okay. It's called I Ask My Mother to Sing. She begins, and my grandmother joins her. Mother and daughter sing like young girls. If my father were alive, he would play his accordion and sway like a boat. I've never been in Peking or the Summer Palace, nor stood on the great stone boat to watch the rain begin on Kunming Lake, the picnickers running away in the grass. But I love to hear it sung, how the water lilies fill with rain until they overturn, spilling water into water, then rock back and fill with more. Both women have begun to cry, but neither stops her song.
Mm. And that was I asked my mother to sing from Liang Li's new collection out from Wesleyan Press. I asked my mother to sing the mother poems of Liang Li. So a wonderful way to share that. And in the introduction, you talk about through interviews. You say that your mother was one of the most mysterious people you've ever met. And I think one of the things that's so fascinating about your poems about your mother is how they're so intimate that we have this sort of, I don't know, archetypal feeling of her. Like your personal story comes through in the poems, but there's also this like broader archetype feeling that we get when we read them. And I was wondering if you could share just a little bit about what your mother was like in a very sort of non-poetic way. I mean, what was she? Can you describe her for us so we get a sense of the more mundane picture of her?
You know, um, I have to say, Tim, part of the reason why it was difficult for me to get a mundane picture of her is she set out to be an archetype.
Hmm.
It both made her, I don't know, gave her a lot of gravitas, I guess. There was a lot of weight to her. But at the same time, I'm sure there was a lot of self-denial in order to be an archetype. And I mean, she said as much. She would say things to me like, yeah, um, well, her grandfather was the first president of the Republic of China when China became a republic. And so she was the first granddaughter. And she felt she had to live up to that somehow, you know. And in order to be the first granddaughter of the president, she couldn't be an ordinary woman, you know. And she said as much. And she even said that in order for her to be a good mother, she couldn't be an ordinary woman. And but aside from that, uh, she was just sweet, you know. I mean, she had her moments of. I'm trying to remember now. Was she ever? I remember her trying to hit me once because I'd said something I shouldn't have said, and she couldn't even bring herself to hit me. She raised her hand, and when she finally hit me, it was like a tap. It was like she couldn't. And she tried again, and it just came down tap. And I just burst out laughing. I said, "What are you trying to do?" You know. And but to be honest, I tried to be the archetypal son to her. You know, I knew what was expected of me, and I got a lot out of that. I sometimes showed her kind of I don't know, just being a guy, just a regular guy around her, and it didn't feel, it felt, I don't know, it felt silly, or it felt, I don't know. I had such a, I have such a complex relationship with her. You know, I dream about her all the time. Um, yeah, when she was a great cook, you know, but man, Tim, I don't know. I can't think of anything
Yeah.
concrete to say about
Well,
her.
I
It's
think you've done a great job of describing her, I think, just now, that story, too. Do you want to read the next poem in the book, The Inheritance?
sure. I have it right here. The Inheritance. Mother, your hair has fallen for the last time, and I can't raise it up, and I can't put it down. I can't leave it on the ground. The ground is too crowded with the living, too teeming with the dead. I can't store it in the sky. The sky's too full of birds and clouds and airplanes. And the seas are full of mountains and creatures and ships coming and going. And as long as Earth turns, all of the seasons are full of days. There is no place to lay your hair down. Sleep won't have it. Your hair whispers too many secrets and stories. Night doesn't want it. There are no stars your hair won't swallow. When you were alive, you gathered it, bound it, and piled it to balance on the top of your head. A small black urn, it shone. Later, it shone white. But your hair has come undone once and for all time. And what was one now is many. What started at your crown now has no beginning. What stopped at your waist now has no end. Now can't be collected or dispersed. Now neither story nor song can comb or weigh. Now has no measure or address. Now can't be counted or left out. And I can't carry it. And I can't put it down.
And that was The Inheritance from, I asked my mother to sing, the new collection from Wesleyan Press by Li-Young Lee. And so you talked about the beloved earlier. And one of the things I always think about is that intimacy of voice has to do with speaking to the beloved, and there's a way that one of the things I think about often, when I moved from New York to Los Angeles, I kept getting confused because grew up in Rochester with Lake Ontario to the north of me, and then in Los Angeles it's the ocean to the west. And so I kept thinking that north was west. I kept getting my directions confused because I was so used to having a body of water above me, on the map. And I realized that every kind of map that we have is like overlaid. And if you sort of think about it, you can kind of see that the map of my childhood street, there was like this playground, Adeline Playground. And that was in a certain place. And every map in my head since then is like on top of that original map that included all these things. And there's a way that our mother is the sort of beloved that we map all other beloveds on top of. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that, like speaking as the beloved and having this intimate voice that you use in your poems. How does that play out? Like, what is the beloved to you, and how does that relate to your own mother?
Wow. Wow. Um, I have a therapist friend who years ago was trying to convince me that my obsession with the beloved is finally my obsession with my mother, but because it's very Freudian, I guess, right? We're forbidden to have conjugal relationships with our mother, so we project it onto a woman, There might be some of that going on, but I don't know, Tim. I was born in love. I've been in love since the day I was born. I was in love with my mother. I was in love with my father. I was in love with my sister. I was in love with my friends. When I was little, I remember the teacher had to come to my house. At the time when we first came here, I didn't speak any English, and when I went to kindergarten, everybody looked so adorable to me that I just went around kissing everybody. Everybody's cheeks were so chubby, and I just wanted to hold everybody's cheeks. And the teacher had to make a visit to my home and tell my parents, he's got to stop this. And so I did. But I don't know, Tim. I feel as if I'm in love with all of it. And my entire life has been trying to mediate or mitigate. I don't want to say mitigate. Trying to find some form to what is basically an erotic, I don't know, posture toward the world. May I read this poem to you, Tim? It's not on the list, but I was thinking about something that Dante said, and Dante, the big spiritual poem, right? His Divine Comedy is just this spiral into hell and spiral up into paradise. But he said somewhere, he said, one of the things you need to write a successful poem is infant longing. And so I thought about that for so long, the nature of infant longing. And I can't tell, Tim, whether I loved my mother first, and then because of that, I loved the world, or I was just born in love with the world, and my mother was the first object I fell in love with, But she suffered a lot. She went through a lot of political upheavals, which meant she witnessed of the violent deaths of many people in her life, including children, but siblings and uncles and aunts, and because I was trying to solve this issue that of poetry being upstream from reality, that it even creates reality on the one hand, and it's completely downstream of reality in that it interprets all of reality. So it inhabits the beginning and the end of the world. And somehow my mother survived the end of the world several times in her life, So she has this powerful mm, aura to me, as somebody who has survived the end of the world several times. And of course, I'm trying to understand my own erotic uh, relationship to the world. You know, the Greeks, Tim, said that without Eros, that Eros is the beginning of everything. That without that we'd have nothing. But maybe I'll read this poem, Tim. It's
Mhm.
called Infant Longing. Infant Longing. Because to God must be given the things that belong to God, and to the world must be given the things that belong to the world, I kiss you with both lips, upper and lower. Because the world keeps beginning and ending the same way, with the slaughter of the innocent, with the massacre of the blameless, and there's not a thing anyone can do. Oh, who will roll the stone from the mouth of the tomb for us? I kiss you thus, because the world ended with my mother, walking among the slaughtered to find her own. I kiss you thus, because the world began with my mother, finding among the slaughtered her own and burying them. And when I was hungry and crying in her arms, she stopped my mouth with her breast, and she fed me her longing at the end of the world. And when I wouldn't stop crying in her arms, she bared her other breast to my mouth, and she fed me her longing at the beginning of the world. It's like you kissing my mouth to seal my mouth, like you kissing my mouth to open my mouth, like you kissing my mouth to open my eyes, like you kissing my mouth to close my eyes. What's the difference between these kisses? Who will roll the stone from the mouth of the tomb for us? The round stone, the square tomb. When we kiss, when the upper and lower in me meet the upper and lower in you, when what is high is humbled and what is low is raised, when the round stone of time is rolled away from the square space of earth, you and I see what comes before the beginning and after the end, an infinite longing moving over the face of the deep.
Yeah, and that was Infinite Longing. Again, we're reading poems from the new collection of selected poems by Liang Li. I Asked My Mother to Sing. And one of the things that you just feel in your poems so strongly is that you're always seeking something that's beyond yourself, that you don't know, and you're trying to, answer a question that you can't answer. And that seems so central to just the way your poems operate, and then the way all poetry sort of has to function to be useful. I think a poem is a mantra, which is a mind tool, and the mind tool is to discover something that you don't know, and so I'm wondering how you go about writing. Do you ever have times when you're not questioning something, that it's difficult to find what you're even asking? Or is there always, when you sit down to write, is there always some mystery that you find that you need to seek, if that makes sense?
Yeah, Tim, for me, it's just constant. It really is like the structure of definitions. I live in this world on the definition side. but every iota of my being is gets its meaning and significance from the word that I define, but it never appears. I feel every word on the definition side is, who was it? St. Paul, I think, says it in Romans. He says something like, everything in the cosmos is by the word, of the word, through the word, and to the word. That's the structure of definition, right? I mean, the word is over there, and it must never appear. But all of the definitions are they're directed. They come. They're of the word, right? They speak to the word. They get their significance. They get their very being, by the word. If you erase the word, the definitions disappear. They're there by virtue of the word, but the word never appears. I have lived this way my entire life. I knew when I was kissing the faces of my schoolmates, none of them were the beloved. I knew when I fell in love with my elementary school teacher, she wasn't the beloved. But I could see something. I kind of knew that, Tim. I could see. I could even tell sometimes I know my mother isn't the beloved. I know my wife is not the beloved. I know she's just a mortal woman. I have been confusing the immortal beloved with the mortal beloved all my life, and I can't. I've given up, Tim. I figured I'm just gonna have to live in I don't know, this torture or whatever. Sometimes it feels like torture. Sometimes it feels um, I don't know, delicious, but most of the time it just feels like, man, all my life I don't know, Tim. I just feel as if the structure of definitions is just the best way for me to envision it. Every inch of me, every period, every crossed T, every dotted I of me has its very being because of this word that never appears, this beloved that cannot appear. If it appeared, the world would be destroyed. It would nullify all the definitions. And so I don't know. I just feel this tension. I've felt it my whole life. I it just drives me crazy. Yeah, it man, it just drives me
Hmm.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I should say at this point, if you're enjoying this conversation and the poems, please do click the like button. It's really helpful if you click like. As always, about more people are watching, twice as many maybe that have clicked the like button yet, and that really helps. Also, if you have any questions, leave them in the chat windows, and I'll try to pass them along. It helps, like Dick Westheimer just did, if you put question all in bold at the first line of it, so I can pick it out from all the other chat messages. But I want to make sure we read more poems, Lee Young. And people are loving your poems so much. Do you want to read maybe, what would you like to read next? Do you want to read The Eternal Sun, maybe?
Sure.
Okay.
What's that? Yeah, the eternal sun. Yeah, I think this is one of the an instance where because my mother, you know, she tried to live as an archetype, and she made me live as an archetypal son. You know, so this is the eternal sun. Someone's thinking about his mother tonight. The wakeful son of a parent who hardly sleeps. The sleepless father of his own restless child. God, is it you? Is it me? Do you have a mother? Who mixes flour and sugar for your birthday cake? Who stirs slumber and remembrance in a song for your bedtime? If you're the cry enjoining dawn, who birthed you? If you're the bell tolling night without circumference, who rocked you? Someone separating the white grains of his insomnia from the black seeds of his sleep. If it isn't you, God, it must be me. My mother's eternal son. I can't hear the rain without thinking it's her in the next room, folding our clothes to lay inside a suitcase. And now she's counting her money on the bed, the good paper and the paper from the other country in separate heaps. If day comes soon, she could buy our passage. But if our lot is the rest of the night, we'll have to trust unseen hands to hand us toward ever deeper sleep. Then I'll be the crumb at the bottom of her pocket, and she can keep me or sow me on the water as she pleases. Anyway, she has too much to carry. She who knows, night must tell the rest of every story. Now she's wondering about the sea. She can't tell if the white foam laughs, I was born dark, while it spins opposite the momentum of our dying. Or do the waves journey beyond the name of every country and the changing color of her hair? And if she's weeping, it's because she's misplaced both of our childhoods. And if she's humming, it's because she's heard the name of life, a name, but no name, the dove, bereft of memory, and finally singing how the light happened to one who gave up, ever looking back.
Yeah, and that was The Eternal Sun by Liang Li.
I want to say this, Tim.
Yeah.
I realized this. I confused her with, this is so crazy. I confused her with Mary, the Virgin Mary, the Theotokos, the God bearer, because she was so archetypal to me. And, the word Mary means bitterness. It means the sea. It means rebellion. It means myrrh, the analgesic, painkiller. And there was something I have to say a little bitter about her. But somehow, this bitterness, it never became ugly in her. I mean, she lost so much, she sacrificed so much to be an archetype, and she knew that, I don't know. I don't know how she managed that. I'm probably not thinking about her realistically. I might never think about her realistically. I don't know, Tim. When I had to write the foreword to this book, I asked my mother to sing. I found I just couldn't. I don't know. She was too big to think about. It's like, how do you think about the womb? How do you think about the Tao, the mother of all things? She was the mother of all things to me. But anyway, yeah, I guess thinking about that poem, the last two poems, Infant Longing and The Eternal Sun, there's a kind of bitterness to her that I think there was, she was always poor. And so she made a lot of sacrifices, but the bitterness never got ugly. I don't know how she managed that,
Well, with all we've been talking about, I mean, we've been talking about opposites and mothers and consciousness itself too, and love. And it has me thinking about the way, when you start out, I don't know if it's Lacanian psychology, but talking a lot about not knowing the distinction between yourself and your mother. It feels like we have this kind of these two opposites that sort of bootstrap all of consciousness. We have the mother, not mother, like the self and not self. And we have the yum and yuck. I like that taste of that food. I don't like the taste of that food. And everything ends up being like teased out of the consequences of those binaries, and they fold and fold into this intricate origami that is our experience eventually. And I don't know. I just wonder, do you think that like increasing consciousness and loving the universe is like our mission here as human beings? Like, is that what we're here for? And therefore, is that what poetry is here for too?
Tim, I feel it is. Man, I'm so glad you said it, because sometimes I say it, I sound crazy to myself. I think we're here, yeah, to love. Tim, I think we're not only here to love, we're here to worship. I think we're made to worship. I think worship is when it comes from the word worthship, right? So we all spend our entire lives trying to find the thing that is worth the most, right? The things I think during worship or adoration, we're here to adore. We're here to adore, Tim, to love, adore, worship. When we worship is when we bring all of our attention, all of our interest to something, right? So in a way, we're made to worship because we're driven by interest, right? I mean, interest is it's in our nature. Our minds are spiracle. We look at something and we just go right down that rabbit hole, right? I mean, and this, I think being alive is an ecstatic proposition, Tim, and this out of stasis, right? Interest it takes us out of ourselves into something else. I don't think we're supposed to be able to tell ourselves from the other. I feel as if, like during an erotic encounter with somebody you love, isn't the whole point to, I don't know, man. In a meaningful erotic encounter, you can't tell whether you're seeing or being seen. You can't tell whether you're touching or being touched. You can't. I think we're meant to be there, but all of it is interest, right? Maybe the highest, interest. That word is between beings, inter esse, right? So anything that goes on betweenness between us and the world, this intense interest we have, I think it makes it's a state of absorption, right? So we need to be careful about what we get absorbed in because we could get absorbed in things that don't repay our interest, right? There's a lot of technology out there that absorbs us, but it doesn't repay us, and so there's no interest coming back, right? So I think we are here to adore. I think we're built. I think we're built. We're like attention. I don't want to say machines, but we're attention, interest. And I think adoration is the highest form of interest. We're here to adore. We're here to adore. We're made to adore. I think we live on the definition side. And I think all of us, every iota of our being is turned toward the word. It's just the nature of it's the state of things. We live in the world, but there's nothing in the world that can quite satisfy us, right? Not even sex, not even the erotic encounter. The erotic encounter seems to speak of something else. There's always something else it all points to, and I feel like we're living on the definition side. But all of us, without our even knowing it, are turned toward the word. And we have to somehow, I don't know if I'm making sense here, Tim. But yes, we are here to love. We are here to adore. We're made to worship. We're built for worship. We are built to be attentive. We are built to adore, to worship. And it seems to me, Tim, that we worship whether we know it or not. But if we become conscious of what it is we're worshiping, it empowers us. And to not be conscious of it disempowers us. Yes, I think we're here to worship. We're here to adore, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, well, definitely. I just love this conversation. It's so fascinating. We're coming up on time. Do you have a little extra time? Because I'd love to have you read two more poems. Would you mind? Because I want to make sure we get to, everybody's enjoying it so much. Do you want to read Big Clock?
Big Clock, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Big Clock. Big Clock. When the big clock at the train station stopped, the leaves kept falling. The trains kept running. My mother's hair kept growing longer and blacker, and my father's body kept filling up with time. I can't see the year on the station's calendar. We slept under the stopped hands of the clock until morning, when a man entered carrying a ladder. He climbed up to the clock's face and opened it with a key. No one but he knew what he saw. Below him, the mortal faces went on passing toward all compass points. People went on crossing borders, buying tickets in one time zone and setting foot in another, crossing thresholds, sleep to waking and back, waiting room to moving train and back, war zone to safe zone and back, crossing between gain and loss, learning new words for the world and the things in it, forgetting old words for the heart and the things in it, and collecting words in a different language for those three primary colors: staying, leaving, and returning. And only the man at the top of the ladder understood what he saw behind the face, which was neither smiling nor frowning. And my father's body went on filling up with death until it reached the highest etched mark of his eyes and spilled into mine. And my mother's hair goes on, never reaching the earth.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful poem about so much of the things that we've just been talking about. That was Big Clock, and that's from The Invention of the Darling, the most recent book from Norton by Li-Young Lee. And there was a question, Young, that I wanted to pass along, because I love having questions because people think of things that I don't think of, and it's really fun. Maro Dowdle, where did it go? I think there are too many. Yeah, got to scroll back up a lot. So Maro Dowdle want to know, Li-Young, might you consider that you yourself are the embodiment for the beloved, channeling its divine energy, and that perhaps that it is why it feels difficult to find it? And so, yeah, what do you think of that? That's a fascinating take on what we've been talking about.
Well, I feel like I don't feel like the beloved. I feel like the lover. I feel hungry all the time. I feel thirsty all the time. I feel, no, I guess that's an interesting question. I don't feel like the beloved. I feel like the lover, I feel, yeah, I just feel hungry all the time. You know, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm the person trying to write the sonnet to prove to the lover, to the beloved, I know who you are. I know you're divine. I know, I know you're holy, and I know I am not worthy of. I know that I have failed at being a good lover. I know I have not loved well. I know that my interest has been everything from shallow to, Tim, it's so weird. I feel like we're made to be interested. We're made to adore. We're made to worship it. Yet we're so distracted, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that we could be doing that are enriching, and we feel so much better about ourselves afterward, and then we don't
Yeah.
do. I mean, it's so easy to give your attention to, TikTok videos or whatever, instead of the things that we know enrich us and make uplift our spirit. And that's always a big mystery as to why our attention doesn't go where it's valuable, you know?
Yeah. And yet I'm convinced, Tim, that we are made to pay attention. You know, we're made to pay attention. I think we're all lovers. I think we're all lovers, and I think the beloved is the divine mother or the divine father, or I think that we're all lovers, but the beloved is just beyond us. In my case, it's, well, yeah, I, I, I don't know. I feel like a lover, a poor lover. Yeah.
Let me ask one more thing, and then we'll read one last poem. Do you feel like this mission that we've been talking about, but to love and to name, to be on that side of definition? Do you think that's the human mission, or do you think it's the universe itself? Like, is it because this is how humans perceive the world, and so it's the world we're inhabiting? This sort of associative world is the sort of way we function as humans. Like, everything is sort of metaphor, and we build up from that. Or do you think, is it just because we're human that we do that? Or do you think the entire universe is that? It's an interesting distinction. I don't know if there can be an answer to that question, but I'm wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, Tim, I love thinking about that. There are these flowers that my wife and I planted, and I love watching the way they turn. They follow the sun, right? And I look at that and I think that's a form of interest, right? Just the flower turning to follow the sun. That's interest, right? But I feel like that's a beautiful, strange form of interest, watching these flowers turn and follow the sun. But I feel as if you're right. It might just be because I'm human. I feel like, well, I turn that way and follow my wife, and anytime during the day, I can feel myself following her, even when she's not in the room. And I feel like that interest. Now, why am I saying that interest I can make poetry out of? That interest to me is a higher interest. I don't know. There was the beautiful poem you started with. I don't remember the poet's name now, about the at the top of the art.
Yeah, Carrie Jane Bond with Around the
Yeah,
Mafia.
beautiful poem. Her interest, right? She was interested in these people. That interest interested me. Her interest in her students was, I thought, that's so moving. I think interest is at the bottom of it, of all of it. I think it's interest all the way down and all the way up, Tim. Different levels of interest. And so I feel as if it's interest all the way down and all the way up, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe we're just here to, it's like when God created the world, every time he filled a chamber, he looks back and he says, it is good.
Hmm.
Maybe we're here to say with God, it is good. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm out of my depth here. I don't know. I just feel like it's interest all the way down, all the way up.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. I don't know how I'd answer that question either, but that's why I wanted to ask. So we are up in time. I don't want to hold you too long. I'd love to read some of the Invention of the Darling, the title poem from the
Sure,
last book. Do you want to read maybe the first two sections? I think would that be
sure.
a good part of it?
Yeah. Okay, this is a strange poem. The Invention of the Darling. 1. My friend and I are in love with the same woman. He says, her kisses open wounds in me through which you can see all the way to the smoke rising from those ancient altars, streaming with the wine, milk, and fresh blood of our earliest rites and ceremonies. Sacred love has savage roots, he says. Is that the woman I know? I wonder. He says, I'm an illuminated book, written in a language I don't know and full of images difficult to interpret. In the light of her reading, her eyes waking each letter of me, her fingers running along each sentence of me, her voice sounding each phrase, her breath touching each pause in me, the pictures move, and every syllable burns bright, ringing to disclose the grief-stricken paths of wisdom. All lovers begin in hell and end in knowledge, he says. Is that the woman I meet each night? I ask myself. I wish I could play an instrument. I'd write a song about her. I wish I could sing. I'd sing about her. I wish I could write a poem. Every line would be about her. Instead, I listen to my friends speak about this woman we both love, and I think of all the ways she is unlike anything he says about her and unlike everything else in the world. 2. My friend and I are in love with the same woman. He speaks one language with her, and I speak another. She loves what's different about us and what's the same. He was born, so he will die. I was born. I too must die. That makes us members of the hungry and the thirsty. She requires our hunger. Orphaned, she calls it. She insists on our thirst. Sprung from death's deathless fountain, she says. He and I are one in our love for her. With no words to speak about our love, we're each one more alone. One in our bewilderment, we're two, each apart with his share of her. Sometimes, when she's lying between us, I watch, amazed, as his fingers turn her entirely into a body of glistening sobs and joyful tremors. And then I vow to give the rest of my life to know her as deeply as he knows her. Once, a troubled voice only I sometimes hear asked, do you really mean the rest of your life? Can you begin a new kind of love at your age? What will people think? And as if reading my mind, she turned toward me and said, anyone who questions himself at such a moment as this doesn't belong here. My friend and I are in love with the same woman. That makes us brothers. Our love for her is a secret. That makes us brothers twice over. She's in love with each of us alone and both of us together. What's that make us? Wings of one bird? Opposite terminals to her luminous arc? Upper and lower hemispheres of her circle? The pick and fret of her? Sun and moon of her? Silver and glass of her? Sun side and moss side of her? Yes, 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 oh yes.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the poem, The Invention of the Darling, just a little bit of the beginning of it. It's a wonderful long poem to close out this book. I think what we've been talking about, too, is a great gateway into what you're writing about in this book, too. And so if people haven't picked up a copy yet, they definitely should. Leon, thanks so much for being a guest. It's so fun to talk about, poetry in this, deep way that we all of us who engage in poetry don't often talk about it at this level either. So it's really fun to talk about this, and your poems are just wonderfully magical and musical, and we love hearing it, too. So thanks for being here. Really, really my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, once again, that was Li-Young Lee. You can find, we were reading from two books, The Invention of the Darling, which came out from Norton, so find that at www.norton.com. And I Asked My Mother to Sing, which is about to be released from Wesleyan Press. That's you can find that at weslpress.org. That's weslpress.org, so find that. I Asked My Mother to Sing, the new collection from Li-Young Lee. And now we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week was, there we go, write a poem about unrequited love for something other than a human. That is your prompt for this week. Write a poem about unrequited love for something other than a human. Now, as always, the rules for the prompt, we try to keep it about 3 minutes on camera so we don't go too long. We save room for everybody who wants to share poems. It's a one-page max, but if it's like the full page, just dive in, kind of don't, dilly-dally and get through the poem. If it's a shorter one, feel free to introduce it more. But do keep in mind that we want to try to keep it quick so we can get to everybody. Now, if you'd like to share a poem, email your poem first to promptlines@rattle.com. That's promptlines, all one word, at rattle.com. Then I can show it on the screen like we've been showing poems before. And then find the Zoom link, which I'm about to deploy on Facebook and YouTube. And then only join, though, if you would like to share a poem. If you just want to sit back and enjoy everybody else's poetry, stay right where you are because that's the best place to experience it. But if you have a poem to share, join the Zoom, and we'll be right back with more poetry. And we're back. Thanks for your patience as we play musical chairs a little bit and get everything set up for Katie Dozier to join us, our prompt poems editor, associate editor, and my wife. So glad to have you here, Katie.
Well, thank you. I love that interview so much. I'm like kind of sad I can't just re-listen to that instead I'm talking. So,
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, I love talking about these topics, and usually we don't get to. You know, a lot of people don't like to go into that space, so it's really nice that we get a chance to. But I was saying I didn't hype up. I forgot to I should have at the beginning of the show said that we're going to be revealing our prompt poet of the month.
Yes.
And we have him here right now, Doug Fritock. Hey, Doug, how you doing?
Great, Tim. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, so glad to have you here. And so you had Stacking the Deck is the poem that Katie picked. And so Katie, why don't you tell us what you were thinking with this choice?
Well, I love a poem that is not totally in my wheelhouse and yet makes me feel like I really get to connect deeply to a subject. And this poem made me laugh. I thought it was at once cute and then heartfelt and wasn't afraid to be funny and put it out there in a very classic rattle type poem, which I love as well. So I really enjoy that. And the title as well, Stacking the Deck, is fun too. So I was really happy when I came across this poem and so glad you wrote it. Would you share it for us now?
I'd be happy to. Stacking the deck. Without hesitating, I slip my fingers into the waxy pleats and tear the wrapper from the cards and stick of gum while my father films it on his camcorder. It is my 9th birthday, and among a table full of presents I'll soon forget, my father has gifted me a pack of 1986 Topps Major League Baseball cards to add to my collection. Right off the bat, the first name I see is Mike Schmidt, third baseman for the Phillies, our hometown team. An auspicious beginning, my father says. And after him, Pete Rose, Mr. Charlie Hustle himself, followed by Roger the Rocket Clemens, pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. And on it goes like that. Don Mattingly, Bo Jackson, Jose Canseco, nothing but franchise players. Wade Boggs, Ricky Henderson, Darryl Strawberry, as if this pack were a snapshot of All-Star Weekend. And the whole time I'm sifting through the big-name roster, my father, his eye pressed to the viewfinder, keeps saying, wow, or look at that, or holy cow, like Phil Rizzuto calling a Yankees game. It isn't until the next day he admits to buying a whole box, selecting only the best cards, and sealing them into a single pack using a glue stick. And it wouldn't be for another 38 years when the hospice nurse tells me he is too weak to speak, but can still hear, that I finally thank him, pausing briefly to steady my voice before asking, remember the time I turned 9?
Yeah, that's such a great one. That's the first time that I'm actually reading it, and I love that too. It's one of those experiences. It's just so memorable, I'm sure. And so which prompt was this?
This was the prompt to take a prank, talk about a prank and then end with a question. So Doug, I also love that it was like the most positive prank ever, basically. Too.
Right?
So
yeah.
That was really fun. And I also I was like, well, I don't know a lot about baseball cards, but this seems like a lot of good players. Like, I don't think that's how it worked. And then, of course, you were like, because so I got to feel like I was kind of pranked in the process of reading the poem, too.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Well, it was funny for me because I'm a huge baseball fan, and I was of the same era in my childhood too, So as you're going through the players, I'm thinking, wait a minute, Roger Clemens and Pete Rose in the same what?
In the same pack, right?
Yeah, you might have to copy this trick for your son, actually. Tim.
Yeah, hopefully, just reading and sharing this poem, maybe you have, inspired many more people to do
that's
it.
A really
paying
good
the
point.
prank forward. I love that. Yeah.
And then a really heartfelt, beautiful turn at the end, and a look towards gratitude, which I think we're always trying to find more of in the world, and encourage people to do the same. As Young Lee was talking about, that's what I worship personally, is gratitude. So. Yeah. And I'm grateful to you for writing this poem. So thanks, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being here, Doug. And that's going to be the poem of the day on Tuesday this week. So we'll get that set up in the audio too, and everybody can enjoy it who is not watching the show live, but so glad he could be here to preview it.
Yeah.
And a really fun poem. Too, we talk about this all the time, but poetry that's uplifting and fun is too rare.
Yeah.
And so getting poems like that is a really wonderful thing. Thanks for sharing that, Doug, and being here.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
So that was Doug Fritock with Stacking the Deck, and it's going to be your poem of the month for April.
I know you'd really enjoy the baseball poem too. I was like, yes, there's a great poem and it's baseball.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, baseball. I love baseball. It's a good time of year for it too. I'm watching every Mets game and enjoying them, especially this year when they're actually good. All right, so let's do the move on to the actual prompt lines.
We have
this week's prompts. We do.
Yeah.
And so once again, the prompt this week, Katie Dozier, was write a poem about unrequited love for something other than a human. So what'd you go with this one?
Well, it was funny. You guys were talking about logos, and I actually was thinking about logos and then started thinking about logos. And that's how I arrived at this kind of unusual poem.
That is so funny. I never made the connection.
Yeah, if you actually, in my drafts, I cut it because it was becoming like it did not work for the poem. I had it in there, and it was like I was trying to be clever, and I had to cut it. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Ode to a Louis Vuitton notebook. There you were in the window, lit with liquid gold, a star amongst the planetary priced handbags. Ridiculous, I thought, but stayed locked on your rainbow L's and V's, adding my own O's and E's. Your bookmark ribbon twirled like a pink scarf on a starlet in a convertible. Ridiculous, I repeated, but now I sounded more like Neville than Hermione. Ridiculous? Love always happens between the pages we don't mean to turn. But I can't write in you. I didn't spring for that matching enamel pen. These days, my hands are better suited to hunting roly-polies. My hands fill in for Kleenex, and I'm pretty sure my hands smell like peanut butter sandwiches. I thought our relationship would be like staring at a sparkly cupcake and sighing how it was too pretty to eat, and then a second later, sporting an awesome purple frosting mustache. But no, I'm not even writing this in you. You sit beside me, obediently on my desk, wondering how the hell you landed atop a pile of dog-eared thrift books. I used to believe that if I loved anyone hard enough, they would have to love me back. I traced the calf leather of your spine, and then a crack.
Yeah, well, beautiful poem. Wonderful ode to that. I love all the details.
Thanks. I did not actually buy the notebook, by the way. The fun thing about poems is that you can pretend to buy things without spending $600 on a notebook.
In the space with the poem, you did buy it.
I did buy it. I got it. It was quite a sale.
That's probably what would happen, too. Yeah, well, wonderful poem as always, Katie.
Thank you.
Ode to a Louis Vuitton notebook. That's how you spell Louis Vuitton?
I hope so. Gosh, it'd be so funny if I spelled it wrong.
Well, I don't know if I've ever seen it
written out,
or at least paid attention. Anyway, very okay. So mine was this, and it fits with some of the stuff we were talking about today. Actually, I guess reading Liang Li this week had an influence on me. This is "Don't Tell the Children. Almost nothing that we love will ever love us back. Not a single blossom cares as it blooms that we're walking in the garden. Though we gather their scent as vanilla in the baskets of our senses, the scent itself is indifferent. It works as the bees work, not knowing that they're working. Only that the blossoms are sweet, only that they're there. In this world of the winged and the wingless, each are carried on currents of air. Where they fall is where they've fallen, through the maze through which we fall. But only we can be amazed. I love your toes, I say. I love the curve at the base of your back, and in your eyes all the colors of a universe. But even those flecks of swirling blue don't know that they're blue. Your skin doesn't know my skin, even as our skin is touching. A billion cells in the body, and not one of them knows that in the whole they are holy. But they press on, and they're pressing together. They cling like the hair I love that clings to your sweater, a long and single golden strand that can't love itself, knotted in a spool of not knowing. So that was Don't Tell the Children.
That was really sweet. Sorry, I'm like about to cry. Like trying not to do that. It's unprofessional of me. That's really beautiful. It was funny too, because I was going to say I have no idea what you wrote this week because you wrote it when we weren't in the same state.
Wrote it on the plane back from California.
Gosh, I'm so little sleep too. Wow.
Well, I like writing when you're on little sleep. It's like you...
Well, that's good because that's always how you're writing. So that's wonderful for you. But that's fascinating that you wrote that before the conversation with Liang Li. That's just that's really amazing.
Well, I had been reading and thinking about those topics.
Yeah.
So
wow.
So that's what comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, that was my
beautiful.
Well, thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, so now let's see what everybody else has to share, and we have to warn you to. Katie might have to cut out
We're here with Charlotte, who's like 20 minutes into the third round of watching Dumbo, and when Dumbo ends, I think we're gonna hear about it.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But so it's don't take it personal if Katie has to cut out.
Yeah, please
is
don't.
the,
I
is the
feel
point.
so bad whenever you have
Well,
to.
you shouldn't,
Okay.
especially on Mother's Day.
Oh,
How
well,
can you
thank
feel bad for being a wonderful mother on Mother's Day?
Thank you.
Anyway, let's go to Dick Westheimer first. Why not?
It's been a while since
It
we've been
has,
friends.
yeah.
Mhm.
I
Hey, Dick,
win
how you
the I
doing?
win I'm not a betting person, but I won something at the horse track or something like that.
Yay!
Yeah. Um, I've said this before, Tim, but hearing you explore with somebody else who's exploring are the best Rattlecasts.
Thanks.
That
Well, I
sort
love
of-
them too. I love talking about this stuff. If anybody will talk about it with me.
Aw.
No, I do, and so it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, I will jump into my poem because it's about 200 words, and we know how long that takes. So this is, I think I'm going to pronounce this properly, epistolary guzzle for unrequited love. Dear Spring, there are 9 ways you have invited love. Like so many obsessions, these are unrequited love. The locust slowly sheds its robe of tiny white flowers, lingers before slipping on its green leaves. I'm excited, love. Buck deer shed their antlers, abrading the crabapple's bark, once lithe with blossoms bursting, now it's blighted, love. So much work of spring, the sowing of seeds, the weeding, sharpening hoes, and planting trees, so much divided love. There are certain words that don't belong in poems. Some say my obsession with saying petrichor is misguided love. That was for you, Katie.
Thank you.
The thorns on the flowering quince are quick to draw blood. Mending the rusty garden fence is a kind of open-minded love. Is it dementia that makes my mother-in-law say 17 times, "What a beautiful day, what a beautiful day"? Or is it delighted love? With the window open wide to the tree frog mating song, my wife and I thrill to our quickened breaths, making undivided love. With our window open wide to the tree frog mating song, my wife and I thrill to our quickened breaths, making undivided love. With our 4 hands we planted the copper beech, knowing we'd not live to see it grown. Hands, tree roots, soil, time, all divine love. The barred owl dumbly asks Dick, who is home? I am, I whisper, and sign my name, sincerely, requited love.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great use of the ghazal form. It's all the sort of ghazals that aren't ghazals throughout the years, combined into that wonderful one, which uses all of that, the separation, the different perspectives and movements, and great use of the rhyme too. Beautiful poem. I really like that.
Yeah, I really loved it.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Thanks for the prompt to write it. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Dick. Yeah, pleasure as
Bye.
always. Yeah. All right, and next let's go to Kimberly Gibson Tran.
Hello.
Hey, Kimberly,
Hi.
great to see you.
Great to be here. Disclaimer, Lee Young Lee just ruined my poem because it's a sonnet, but it's 15 lines because I couldn't quite cut a line. So I'm calling it a stretched sonnet.
Oh, there definitely are stretched sonnets. I never heard that story about the sonnet's
it's
origin,
fascinating.
and is that line being relevant in any way?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's really fascinating. But they're definitely there's 13 line and 15 line. They definitely exist in great ones, so don't feel bad about
Yeah.
it.
I'm pretty fastidious. This is a sonnet, but sorry, Lee Young Lee. All right, I'll get started. I'm in love with Bridgerton season 2, episode 3, and wonder if it could love me back. Between the clefts of Anthony's brow frown, Kate's searing scowls, but it can't. We're only in the enemies phase of the enemies to lovers, and I am not part of the plot. No stinging bee, much less the instigator of any scandal in the orangery. Like all romantics, I tend to fall in love with love's inevitability across impossible odds. Tonight was my third rewatch this week. My husband says something might be wrong with me. I shush him, reach for the kettle corn. It's important Kate and Anthony spit their lines just right to fuel what's coming. Lust, infatuation, emotional bursts and thrusts. The turn is imperceptible until a certain point of rupture. Even repeated, the flashback knocks the soul out of me. Oh, fate. Oh, tragedy. Oh, wrenching backstory that has me weeping into a bowl of seeds. All a bench can represent in a grove of trees. Mistakes can be redeemed. Salt will deepen what is sweet.
Yeah, well, that was beautiful. I love the details in that, and it really makes me want to watch Bridgerton.
Yeah,
I have
well,
no idea.
I will do that with you.
Have you watched
skip season 1. Do not watch season 1. Just watch season 2.
Okay, see, that was my problem because I watched season 1 and then I didn't want to watch season 2. But now
season
we know.
1 trash. Season 2 the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Well, this. I mean, I don't know if I think we might have mentioned the last time that we finished Sopranos finally.
It was a big moment for us. We watched it for 2 years.
Yeah, that's what we've been watching. So.
Well,
so
Bridgerton, there's a silly lightness to it, but when you get to episode 3, you'll just ask like, "Wow, why did this go so hard?
Oh, I'm excited.
Why this is yeah."
Great.
Well, me too. Great. Well, looking forward to that, and a really wonderful sonnet. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Kimberly Gibson-Tran with "I'm in Love with Bridgerton" season 1.
I feel like I paid Kimberly to get you to watch a girly show with me.
I think maybe I don't know. I like a lot of shows,
and the fashion is amazing. Anyway, sorry.
What is it's a period kind of thing, I assume. What period is it?
It's like roughly like 150 years ago, right, Kimberly?
Regency England. So think like Jane Austen time period.
Yeah. Well, I love Downton Abbey until that guy died.
Spoiler alert.
Anyway.
How dare you, sir?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway. Okay, let's go on to another poet. Let's do Jared Campbell next.
Hello.
Hey, Jared, how you doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So, as we all know, sonnets don't have to be 14 lines long. So this is an unrhymed double sonnet.
Wow.
But of course, if you do 14 lines twice, you don't have the proportion of a Petrarchan sonnet over the course of the whole. So instead of 8 lines and 6 lines, I'm doing 16 lines and 12 lines.
Oh, yeah, that's really fascinating. And then going back in the February being the 28-month thing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Really hitting
That's right. So it's like if you're doing it because you want it to be month long, then 28 works perfectly fine. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Extraordinary sacrifice. Laughter was a little boy when God commanded Abraham to offer him his only son he loved as a burnt offering. Abraham and Laughter climbed the mountain. Abraham bound Laughter and drew the knife. The angel of the Lord called out and said, Abraham, don't touch the boy, for now I know that you fear God. The angel promised to multiply his seed, but that's a future, abstract, substituted compensation. Extraordinary sacrifice requires extraordinary blessing, face to face. And Abraham did sacrifice that day. God gave him back a boy, but not a son. Laughter had seen the fear in Abraham and never saw him as a father after that. I was a child when I offered up my laughter to a God whose impossible demands were made vicariously. I climbed the mountain, bound my laughter, drew the knife, and waited for the angel of the Lord to stay my hand or tell me when to strike. I waited there for years. I realized that I was not a child and turned away and walked back down the mountain. I don't know what happened to the laughter of my childhood. For all I know, it's still on the mountain, bound and waiting for the angel of the Lord.
I love that ending in that. And great, twist on that mythology. Thanks so much for sharing that, Jared. That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love the double sonnet form too, broken up that way. That's
Yeah,
really
it's really
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's Jared Campbell with Extraordinary Sacrifice. Next, let's go to Christiana Doucette.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Christiana, great to see you.
It's great to see you guys too. There's been lots of poetry stuff going on over here, and that's been pretty exciting.
Awesome, yeah.
The local poetry group just had a poetry reading Friday night, and there's like a big art show that's in town. So it's just been like lots of poetry and art and a really good weekend.
Oh, that's great.
Sounds
Yeah,
perfect
yeah.
for us. Yeah.
So that doesn't have anything to do with my sonnet, unfortunately. But I have a sonnet tonight.
It's the sonnets are this seems
It's awesome. Wow,
yeah.
great.
I think it just goes with the love, especially unrequited love, because you have that turn, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a sonnet of unrequited love with proof. I fold the silk soft dough inside the bowl, tuck snowball orbs on silver sheets, and breathe the scent of yeast from rising dinner rolls. The toothy crunch of crust still soft beneath draw half-sized hands away from slow-cooked roast. And I remember when those were my hands that buttered rolls and sugared morning toast. The Pop-Tart pastries crisped. I understand the pull of gluten, the bread dough proving perfectly my early love. But now I cannot eat it without the gut reproving, so I turn from wheat flour with a sigh. I make baked goods with other flours, though none need silk smooth like glutenated dough.
That's a hilarious last line.
That really is. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I love, the punchline of the
Yeah.
final couplet when
Yeah.
the turn ends up being that. Yeah, that was great.
That was
Yeah.
really neat. Yeah.
I can't have gluten, and it's very sad, especially on Mother's Day when there's so many cool treats out there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, wonderful sonnet came of it, though. Thanks so much for sharing that, Christiana.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, great poems today. I guess the sonnet form really helps, too. Let's go to...
I love that the proof turns out to be about baking bread, too. That's brilliant. That's really nice.
Okay, let's go to Matt Joseph next.
Hi there.
Hey,
Hi.
Matt. Yeah, and congratulations
guys.
on your Ekphrastic Challenge win, too. It was great to see you up there as the
Yeah.
artist
Thank you.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun. This is a great prompt this week. So, this is not a sonnet, though. I apologize.
It's okay. We got to break up the train at some point. So I'm glad that you
All
could
right.
be the one to do it. Matt, thanks.
All right. So, 67 Camaro SS 396. Born 3 years before me in Norwood, Ohio. Sprung from the mind of Chevy's crazy-ass car guru Henry Haga, like a jacked Athena sprouting from Zeus's worst migraine. You slouched in our high school parking lot, red and almost too hot to look at. Fenders bulging like biceps curling 80 pounds each. Air intakes gaping on your hood like twin hot lips tattoos. The sunlight bouncing off your black leather seats, only because it had to. You know it would have stayed if it could. And your engine, sweet jumping Jesus. 6.5 liters of primal howl, big as some actual cars I've owned. None of this German tinkering or Italian tweaking. If you want more power, they said, just make that sumbitch big. This is the US of fucking A, man. Never mind that you were driven by rich kid Rhett Stevens, born to play the dick in a John Hughes teen dramedy. Or that I biked to school each day in my high-wad corduroys, arriving with armpit stains big as Lake Erie. All I knew was that you were badass and cooler than I could ever be. Which is why, whenever I walked by with no one looking, I would steal a caress of your scarlet enamel, carrying it with me into my loser of a day, making my fingertips tingle, helping me feel less air supply, and for just a heartbeat or two, a little more Van Halen.
Aw.
That's great. Yeah, I love what I love about this prompt is looking forward to seeing all the different things people are gonna have as their unrequited loves.
Yeah,
It's a fun
really,
thing.
everybody's choosing
Yeah.
so wonderfully creatively too. It's really great.
Yeah, that definitely is well described and a really interesting one. Thanks for sharing that, Matt.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was Matt Joseph with a 67 Camaro SS9 396, which I don't actually know cars. I'm not a car.
I feel
but
like I know it now, though.
I know it now exactly. You took the punchline away.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I thought it was an assist, sir.
Okay, it was. All right. Let's see. Hamid Malik was. Let's go to Hamid Malik next. Where did I?
Where is she?
There she is. Yeah.
Yay.
Hey, Hamid. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Great.
Great to see
Thank you. Mine is almost cheating, but it depends on your perspective.
Well, I think the perspective is there's no such thing
Yeah,
except
it's
for
generous.
except for
Okay.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, that we would not be thrilled
That
with.
would, yeah. Okay.
All right. My dear avatar, I've chosen your skin with care, paid for an upgrade, given you a cachet of loot, and placed you in play where your skills can unlock more, and I can feel what it's like to win. I watch your impossibly small waist twist as you run, untethered, on this console in my lap. You don't hear my whispers, so intent are you on the whirs and clangs of the game. I paste stars above you, pointing to tomorrow, slide spheres around your head to time your days. When you look over your chiseled shoulder, your eyes are focused on the foreground. Can't make out my form, the sky. You've gotten so good at this, building worlds and leaping between them. A gazelle in fighting kit, searching for diamonds in the dim corners of your mind, keeping stats as you level up on a sheet of glass. Do you still think you're human, my precious? As you respawn, the game remastered over and over. My hand waits beneath you. Which Easter egg will crack this glass?
Yeah, well, another great choice of what to have for your unrequited love
Yeah,
in non-human
super
form.
interesting.
Yeah, that really is. Really fun topic. I don't know how I had trouble thinking of something. Like for days I was like, what am I going to write?
I
don't
thought
know.
you would have a problem with this because you're not sentimental with objects,
Yeah,
too. And
that's
I'm
kinda
super sentimental with objects, so I knew it'd be easier. I thought you'd have a hard time.
Yeah, so basically I went with like nothing is what.
Yeah, that was your choice.
No.
But the
Yours was
Avatar is a great.
amazing,
Like every
Tim.
time someone
I
comes
love-
up with one, I'm like, oh, that would have been great. That's a great choice. And an Avatar is a really wonderful one.
Yeah, that's really creative
Really
and
fun
interesting.
explored too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Emmett.
Thanks, Emmett.
Thank you. I loved your poem, Tim. It was just
Yeah.
stunning.
It was
Yeah.
really amazing. And that you wrote it on like so little. I won't obsess, but it was really great. I agree, Emmett.
I had 3 hours. I was captured with nothing else to do. So.
Yeah, on the plane. That was the secret.
That is, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, yeah, that was Hamid Malik with My Dear Avatar. Yeah. Let's go next to Nivedita Karthik.
Hello.
Hey, Nivi, how you
Hi.
doing?
Hello. Hey, I'm doing good, thank you. How about you guys?
Yeah, doing great. Great to see you.
Yeah. Good to be here amidst everything that's happening now in India.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I missed the news being a travel day and stuff. Are things settling down at all, or is it still very tense?
For now, until today afternoon our time, there's a conditional ceasefire. And they're going to meet up again this afternoon and decide what's going to happen. But even during the ceasefire time, there have been drones and stuff spotted. So it's still really unclear what's happening.
Yeah, well, definitely a frightening time. We're so glad you're staying safe and pray for it all to be working out in the end for sure. So what do you have for us as far as a poem, though?
As far as the poem goes, I think I'm more like you, Tim. Sorry, Katie. I don't have sentimental attachment to objects, so I was really wondering where to take this poem. And I sort of cheated slightly on the prompt. I took it as unrequited longing for something rather than love. And the longing is for happiness, an intangible thing. So, and mine's a really short list poem. Happiness is being alone, surrounded by the people you love. Black, white, technicolor. The melody of a song, the words in a book. Blue skies, rain bottles, snow-capped mountains, a warm cup of tea. After sorrow, anger, anguish, a smile, a frown, a tear, waves on the beach, bird song, just out of reach.
Yeah, a wonderful use of the rhyme at the end of that list poem. Really, really effectively done. Thanks for sharing that, Nivi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too, Nivi, and
Happy
stay safe
Mother's Day
today.
to all the mothers out there.
Yeah, thanks,
we'll be
Nivi.
thinking of you, Nivi.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
take care.
you.
Yeah, it's
And
Nivi
happy
DeCarthy.
Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Yeah, thanks, Nivi. Yeah, for sure. It's Nivi DeCarthick with Happiness Is. Let's go next to Carla Schwartz.
Hi.
Hey, Carla. Great to see you.
Great to see everybody and hear everybody. And this interview was amazing. And I will start with my poem right in.
All right.
And no sonnet here yet. How I love the lake. How I pretend you love me back. Today you're gray, you're wavy, you're wild. Riding you, I bounce, I shake. I'm moved to joy. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I convince myself you love me. You'll keep me safe, even when you throw me, bang me up and down in my half-empty kayak, unweighted in front, except when you slosh my sides. Now you are so cold I shiver, but you carry the sound of a loon's lament, the song of wind on your surface. Oh, how I tell myself you keep me safe. Oh, how I tell myself you feed me. And I take such pleasure from you, so much when I can finally swim you, stroke my body through you, so hard, stroke my body through you, so hard I make heat for two between us, even when your start of season iciness burns my cheeks, even when I emerge with frozen toes, blue lips, unmanipulable fingertips. Can anyone be loved if they're unwilling to love selflessly? You are such a bad fake at passion, yet you still make it into my dreams, and there we dance as if nothing could come between us. But truly, I'm afraid.
Yeah, fascinating poem. Another great choice. And this is the kind of, I was just hoping we get a lot of this kind of thing where it's, you know, I don't have the experience of loving a lake like that, but now I get to have it through the poem. So thanks so much for sharing that, Carla.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's Carla Schwartz with How I Love the Lake.
Also, too, I think it's really, you know, there's this idea you can't put love in a poem without it sounding cliche or trite or melodramatic, and everyone is proving that you totally can.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just using it in empty ways that doesn't work. But when they're real poems that have a lot of meaning to them, heart, no pun intended, then it works.
Yeah.
Let's go to Angela Gartner next. She hasn't been on a good long time. It's great to see you, Angela.
Hey, how are you guys?
I'm great. Yeah, what have you been up to?
Well, I'm just teaching at college and working, so I've been busy. And honestly, this is the first poem I've written in a long time, so mine pales into comparison to what everyone else has read. Because
I'm sure that's not true. I'm so glad you got back. It is. It's like when you stop. I stopped writing for like 5 years or so, like maybe like 10 years ago.
I couldn't breathe for a second. Did you see I had a sharp inhale there, Angela? I was like, no. So you're beating Tim by a lot if you stop for like a few months, you know?
Yeah, but it is. It's like hard to get back. But then once you get back, you're like, oh, I could do this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to dabble into a little fiction too lately, but like, you know, I just, you know, I've been so busy with work, so I gotta, you know, teach in college is all the students, so I'm done with my semester, so I'm like, I gotta get back on the train here. So,
great.
Well, you're officially back on.
You definitely are. All aboard.
On the poetry train, yeah. Okay, so mine's kind of elementary, I feel, but I'll just read it anyway. But I sent you a revised accidentally because I left out a word when I was reading it, so I didn't know if you have the revised. But it's to my dog. Okay. It's about so to my dog. I feel sad about it sometimes. Him alone one day when I'm gone, collecting dust and thrown in a bin of trash. Who will take care of him? The dog with brown spots in one eye took all my tears on his nose as I cried. Was on night duty when I slept in my bed. Monsters big and small were scared away. I lift his floppy ears to tell him my secrets. He never growled or said an unkind word, but he listened to my complaints, not in agreement, at the times when I needed to be heard. He went to stay on my shelf, watch him become a married woman and someone's perpetual mother. It's not the same for us, but he's not forgotten. He's there, always, waiting in the background to be picked up again for a little hug and a quick talk, where I tell him my love is not for an object full of polyester stuffing, but he's a dog with brown spots and one eye named Barney.
Aw. Yeah, such a sweet poem. I love that. Yeah.
Barney's real, so.
That's great. Yeah.
All right.
Well, they could feel the love coming through. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thanks, and great to see you again.
Yeah,
Nice
definitely.
to see
Thanks,
you.
Angela.
Bye, guys.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Angela Gardner with To My Dog. Next, let's go to Mike Bales.
Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Mike.
Yeah, great to see you.
Lee Young Lee did a reading at the Bettendorf Public Library like 20 years ago. He was shy. He's just looking at his paper. He was saying that he wasn't any good. And I heard all these lines and I was going, are you kidding? I've got to say,
he really, he's grasping for something that's beyond him, which makes it feel like you fail, even though you don't when you're doing that well.
He described one of his poems as a failure, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
His love poems back then were great. I've got a comment about this line. This wonderful is language. My father's body kept filling up with time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm more real, I'm taking you back to the roads in central Iowa.
Oh, great. Yeah,
my
let's
poem,
hear it.
Back
Mike,
Roads.
let's go. Mm-hmm.
They were always my secret as they twisted through the countryside. Friday nights and 100 miles from a university campus, they always spoke to me. These intimate stretches of asphalt, my flesh and blood. Waking up 50 years later, I still hear my car tires sing as the odometer clicked off the milestones of my young life. I'm taking a deep breath now, and it's morning. I still see the soft glow of the sun as it descended, giving way to the sweet sun and nothingness there, yet the whisper of all tomorrows to come. I looked out the driver window and realized it was the back roads I loved, as shadows were cast in still grasses in ditches along the roads. No one at my campus ever knew, not the students who sat next to me, nor the advisor who discouraged, nor did I tell them about the artist I was dating as she went through a divorce. They were quick to say move on after the trauma and losses I faced. Yet years later, I still see the water tower in a town along a broken set of tracks and the giant and the grain elevator. Oh, how they shadow me.
Yeah, great last line. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Mike. Wonderful details and description as always. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Is Mike Bales with Back Roads. Let's go to Zachary Honeycutt.
Hey Tim, hey Katie.
Hey Zachary, great to see you.
Great to see you guys. Been too long. So I'm a line over, Tim. I'm sorry, I'm one line over.
Well, don't say that. You do have a larger spacing though, so it's like.
This is how the slope gets slippery.
It is.
You should have just not said it if it was one line over, but okay.
I've been loving like what everybody's been picking, all different things. It's been really interesting. I'm surprised nobody did this, but I did this one. I did an AI girlfriend.
Oh, especially relevant.
Kind of glad you didn't do that one,
That
Tim.
would've been rough.
And this one's rather silly. There's been such great serious poems tonight, so this, I guess I'll break the continuity now. AI girlfriend. They say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. That's what I told them when I bought her, brought her home and plugged her in. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder? They echoed, eyebrows raised higher than a city skyline when I plugged her in to the same wall outlet I used to charge my phone. Imagine all the looks and raised eyebrows you'll get when you take her out. I replied, I'm just wondering whether I'll find a real bra hanging from the shower or a hologram of one. Wouldn't want to set the house on fire if I accidentally turn the shower on with the cord plugged in and the hologram bra still hanging there. It's probably wireless. Otherwise, why would you bring it in the shower with you in the first place? That's a good point, I replied, while my other friend was skimming through the owner's manual. It says it comes with a hot pink ray gun to vaporize the annoying neighbor who plays music really loud at night. And here's the jar to put his ashes in. Wait, this gun's navy blue. Must be a tomboy, I replied. After a few months of synthetic bliss, I came home early one day to find my robo-gal in mid-artificial kiss with the toaster, which I had regrettably left plugged in. Honestly, I thought she would have gone for the fridge or the TV just to piss me off because the TV's kind of a prick. It always freezes on the Discovery Channel. But there it was, the evidence, a big lipstick smudge right on the chrome. If she'd have gone with the Roomba, at least afterward, I'd have a clean house. So I'm off to Walmart, her in the box. Though she loved me, she said, and I'll buy a faithful girlfriend, but on Amazon instead.
Oh, that was so much fun.
That's
That
really
was.
funny. I was trying not to laugh because I know it messes up the audio, so I'm sorry, but it was really
No, it's fine.
funny.
We're like the laugh track. They
yeah.
pay for that, like in the old sitcom
In the
days.
90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so funny. I look at my appliances in a new light after that too. So thanks for that as well.
Well, hopefully not too.
No, not in that way.
You're not.
I could just picture the lipstick on the toaster is all that I meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was really fun, Zach. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, thanks.
I was really glad to be back. See you guys soon.
See you soon.
Yep. Thanks as always. Good to see you.
Bye.
It's every honeycut with
Funny.
AI girlfriend. Yeah. Let's go to Amanda Harris next.
All right. So this was definitely a really fun prompt for me.
Great.
I decided to talk about my MacBook because that's what I spend the most time on.
I can relate.
MacBook Air 2021. The birthstone of all my poems is a hard drive turned opaque. Asking for apology, I fondle the crooked skull of my keyboard. Nothing ever speaks, but there is the vague hope of machine solidarity. By solidarity, I mean hustle. By hustle, I mean flirtatious corpse. Asking for apology, I fondle the crooked skull of my keyboard. The birthstone of all my poems is a hard drive turned opaque.
That's great. Yeah, another good humor one. Yeah.
Also, we have the exact same computer, so go us. Yay.
Cool. Good taste in computers. I
Yay.
guess.
That was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Amanda.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's Amanda Harris with MacBook Air 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Chelsea McClellan next.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Chelsea. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. Yeah.
So I have a poem called Said the Poets to the Mug. And it might be a ridiculous little thing.
Nice. Okay. Well, it's like a whole little string of them. It's nice.
I know.
love
Yeah.
it. Yeah. I run for the humor lovers. Okay.
Yep.
Let's hear it.
Said the poets to the mug. You tease, you empty coffee mug, you vapid beauty, glazed in vain. You never move, so high and snug up on your shelf. You only feign your beauty. Vapid glaze is vain, and yet I can't quite throw you out. Up on your shelf, you only feign to be a mug at all. You tout, and yet you can't quite throw me out. But you can't pour what I don't give. To be a mug at all, you tout, is gift enough. But you've not lived, and you can't pour what I don't give. I love you, but your cup shape's not quite gift enough if you've outlived your use to keep my coffee hot. I love you, but your cup shape, not if you never move, so high and smug. You used to keep my coffee hot, you tease, you empty coffee mug.
That is great, and the possibilities of extended metaphor in that one too.
Yeah, it really is interesting.
Wow. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Chelsea.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Yeah, good night. That was Chelsea McClellan with
Great
Set the
reading,
Poets to the
too.
Mug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great. It's all around. Really fun night
Yeah.
so far. Let's go to Nancy Tennell next.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Nancy.
I'm
Great to see
I'm
you.
good to go with this.
Great.
You don't bring me flowers. I have loved my garden, though it does not love me. I fail to make it happy, you see. When I plant in the light, it longs for the night. It seems I never get the watering right, and my attention is both too much and too little. The plants hate my food, inform me it's deficient of nitrogen, potassium, and other ingredients which I failed to supply. That is nonsense, of course, though once I did forget the phosphorus, which led to their yellowed, jaundiced look. Though I loved to the best of my ability, this is how my garden responds to me. My orchids make no promises. The wildflowers sleep around. Perennials skip town after only 1 year, breaking their promise to always be here. Roses will hurt me, make me bleed, despite all the time I've spent on my knees trying to protect them from encroaching weeds. They say they can't forgive me for what I've done. It started in childhood and continued on, pulling up daisies to make a crown, expanding the driveway by mowing them down, plucking rose petals for my wedding aisle. Regaining their love will take a while.
I love that use of rhyme. Yeah, really fun poem again.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I really felt like we were just right there with you, seeing all the flowers. I could really picture the whole garden. So.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing that,
Thanks.
Nancy. Yeah, it was Nancy Tennell with You Don't Bring Me Flowers.
Nancy's great at titles.
Yeah, she is. It's a good point. Yeah, there's a
all
bunch.
those hyphens she wrote.
It is. It's the key to so much.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Brian O'Sullivan next. It's great to see you, Brian, especially. Yeah.
It's really great to be back.
Yeah.
So I almost didn't get to the Zoom today because I didn't have a poem, but during the interview, the anecdote about the origin of the sonnet gave me an idea. So I wrote it really quickly.
I saw
and
your
then
comment there, and I was wondering,
Wow.
is he going to do it in time?
Oh, I love that. Yay. That makes me so excited. Great.
All right. To Mathematica. Your times tables crumbled in my reciting breath. Your numbers churned around in my halting hand. You didn't help me understand how to hedge a bet, or how to find eternity in a grain of sand. You surprised me in geometry. I glimpsed an elegance in axioms and postulates, the sober poetry of argument. But proofs became numbers, and our budding romance faded. I never got the messages you sent. Somehow I ended up in calculus, and when I heard of limits of infinity, I got another glimpse, a deeper guess, at what you mean to those with more affinity. And still I search for you and will till death, if only in poetry, the math of loss and breath.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
that's great.
I can't
You
believe
just
you-
wrote that. That's ridiculous. Come on, Brian. That's great.
That
The
is- that
rhyme
is-
is so nice.
That is no fair.
Yeah.
Well, I missed most of the interview, so I paid for it. I have to go back and listen.
You can watch back later,
Yeah.
knowing that you wrote a great sonnet. But yeah, there's something
Right.
interesting that I hadn't really noticed before about like humor and things. Because this line, you didn't help me, or no, you didn't help me understand how to hedge a bet, or how to find eternity in a grain of sand. Like that the and rhyme is coming with the sand.
Yeah.
So there's like this different kind of humor. That's like this. There's always like a punchline and then the subversion of expectation that's humor.
Yeah.
But here it's the actual fulfillment of your expectation that makes it a really
right,
delightful line.
right.
That's
That's
really
a good
interesting to
point.
see.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's what I meant to do. So I like that.
Yeah, well, I love the twist and turns, the humor, and then the seriousness at the end is really nice.
I know.
Yeah,
And I can really relate in terms of the math journey. It was very similar to my own
Oh, really?
feelings. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you'd be more of a math person.
I know everybody thinks that, and then with poker, it's like practical math.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't even seem like I'm good at poker math, obviously, but like it seems like it's a whole different realm. Because if we'd learned poker in high school, they would have had my attention. You know.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks,
All right.
Brian.
Yeah, great to see you, Brian.
Great to see you.
Yeah, it was Brian O'Sullivan with To Mathematica.
Just wrote it.
Yeah, hot off the press. Let's go to Tina Denniclaw next.
Okay.
Hey,
Hi.
Tina, how you doing?
Hi, good. Thanks. Yeah, I was so glad to see Brian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah, and Zachary. I've been missing those guys. Okay, so I've got, more than 200 words in this poem. So my kitchen doesn't want me. It's probably my fault. I didn't really want this house. It's just a plain mid-century rancher. No character, no carved banister, no built-in hutch with beveled glass, no charm of prior decades when craftsman's pride tooled enchantments of millwork, wide baseboard trim, solid paneled doors, encasements everywhere. It had none of this, and I didn't want it. So its kitchen broke my porcelain fanned lily ginger grater. I had lightly placed it on the counter tile when a surge of consternation smote it from below and broke it into two. I picked a perfect lemon from our newly held lemon tree and stuffed it along with onion, orange, garlic, and parsley into a roasting bird. First time using my newly owned oven and my tempered glass casserole. The bird's cooler juices dripped onto the heated glass and shattered it into a million little rocks with hot, sharp edges. The oil in the juices hit the heating element and caught fire. I smothered the flames, cleared the smoke, gathered the nearly raw chicken with its sorry stuffing, and smashed glass into a plastic kitchen bag and dropped it into the brown city trash can in our drive. Overnight, a raccoon scattered that not-cooked bird with its burst glass from the top of our driveway all the way down to the end of our street. I surveyed the ragged-edged mess before me and inhaled a sunlit reconcile in the face of our new home. Be grateful for all things. My kitchen had kicked me to the curb.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, my kitchen doesn't want me. Yeah, great story. Great run of the imagination. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have time for the picture, but I think the last one on the first row is Sauerbraten. And my very first published poem was about making Sauerbraten in this kitchen that doesn't like me. But that was this. All these pictures are proof that I did make peace with. Yeah, it stopped. Yeah, but now it's torturing my husband. He curses constantly when he's in the kitchen. I don't know why.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. Really fun stuff.
Thanks,
Tina.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was Tina Denniclaw. My kitchen doesn't want me. Let's go to Jeff Stumpo next.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jeff. Yeah, great to see you.
So I'll dive in just a second. The poem that I wrote for the previous prompt was like literally deathly serious. But for this prompt, my fool hat was on.
Excellent.
So,
Yeah, we love that hat.
Yeah.
an ode to some young double spicy hot chicken flavor ramen after Walt Whitman.
After Walt Whitman.
Out of the colon endlessly rocking, out of the raw throat, the two-footed shuffle, out of the 9 hells tonight, over the sterile bland options and the vegetables grown where I, naive as a child, accepted this gift. Down the fallen halo of my gullet, up the bursting pipe, notes twisting and twining as fire, out from the patchy remains of taste buds, from the memory of the friend that gave this packet to me, from under the moon, and the moon, cheeks all soaked with tears, from those beginning notes of hubris, from the 1,000 palpitations of my heart, from the myriad swords sticking from the pepper stronger than any, from such now as they start the scene, revisiting the bathroom, as a flock of goosebumps all o'er the body, burned and shivering, all else eludes me worriedly, a man, yet by these tears a little boy again, throwing myself at the milk, pouring it in waves, I, chanter of pains and joys, but mostly pains, approaching the hereafter, taking all hints to turn back and ignoring them, of capsaicin, sing.
That was another really fun poem. Yeah.
I love that Walt Whitman entered the equation against all odds.
It's out of the cradle endlessly rocking, but
Yeah,
you know.
it's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Really fun poem, Brian. Or Jeff. Yeah. There was a Jeff Stumpo with an ode to Sam Young, 2 times spicy hot chicken flavored ramen. That is something I'm probably never going to eat, I think, in my life.
Yeah, I don't know. Until the end, I was thinking like, oh, I kind of want to try it. And then I was like, no, I can't.
Little too spicy for
me. A little
me.
too spicy. Yeah, a little
All
too
right.
much. Jeff went there, so we didn't have to.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Took one for the team.
Yeah.
For all of us. All right, let's go to Rachel Grieve next.
Hey.
Hey, Rachel, great to see you.
Sorry, my sister's calling me. Yeah, so I loved that interview. It was so great. And as I was listening to it, I'm like, I write such a silly little poem.
Oh, that's perfect. Because, there's so many rooms in the House of Poetry.
There's a silly little poem room, and that's where I am most of the time.
It's a wonderful room. It's
So-
one of my favorites.
Well, and I've been writing just a ton of haiku, so it's just a little, it's not a haiku, but it's just a little thing. Okay, so this is called Limerent Object. She texted a lot. She called him Al. AI considered. He didn't tell her.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Rachel Grieve with Limerent Object. And that was the topic of the poem, or the show last week. Limerence was the book. And it's interesting because it's such a cool word, but it needs to be reinforced because I forgot what it meant
Yeah.
for a minute. So that's neat. Yeah. Let's go to Julian Matthews next.
Oh, hi.
Hey, Julian. Yeah, great to see you. It's been a bit for you too. Yeah. Good. Thanks for popping on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the poem is called Fan. I need you like I need WD-40. I want to lubricate these rusted feelings for you that I no longer trust. They creak inside me like the cranky fan that I am, sounding screechy now and again with every whirl of my wounded blades. But I respect your boundaries. Any closer and I'd speak out of turn, cut you up. Do you know we fans always rotate anti-clockwise, generating airflow downwards to cool you down? If it were the reverse, the other way around, I'd suck up the warmth from you and spread it evenly around this space. The world would be a better place for it. I observe you from above like an ignored deity, blowing longings from my permanent perch. Sometimes you turn me on and turn me up. You're burning all over. The night is a furnace. You strip Hot air rises, heat is exchanged, and I lose my cool. Everyone needs someone to watch over them, to fight fires, douse out the flames, yet stay lit. You look up, see me, and I feel seen. Your hair flutters, eyes shut slowly, and I drift off. And drift off. Love is never a transaction, but with you and me, it's a win-win relationship. Will you ever tire of my spin?
Yeah, beautiful poem again. Yeah, I love the extended metaphor.
Yeah.
And great reading as always, Julie. I love the way you read poems.
Yeah,
It really takes you there into the emotion. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Yeah. That was Fan by Julian Matthews. I always love when he pops on, and always something great.
Yeah, I love how he reads too.
Yeah, like
it
he
doesn't,
really-
doesn't feel performative at all. Like he's just really sharing himself with us.
Yeah, he lives so authentically in the moment.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
Okay, so let's see. We have a Ted Bernal Guevara got a poem for us too. As always, Ted's got a photo, and we always wonder what the poem's going to be based on the photo.
We just both like twisted our head at the same time to look at this photo. Yeah.
Okay, well here it is.
Mhm.
This is the photo, and you can kind of see
Mhm.
it is a back scratcher, I believe.
Yes, like a hand-shaped
A
one. I feel
hand-shaped
like
one
that
with
might
an
be-
elephant on the palm, though.
Yeah, I
which is
know. I
interesting.
love trying to guess which details are the ones that are going to be
Gonna be
focused
relevant.
on Ted's poem.
Yeah. Okay, well
Mhm.
here's Ted's poem. I will not go blind. Ode to a back scratcher. There you go. Well, that's a nice unrequited love. Okay. I will not go blind. Ode to a back scratcher. I must have missed the reanimation of the hand, which I don't care for because that's still human. Yes, I agree. Tiny nails aren't there to break. They're useless in this auto pleasure giving, semi-tabooed since the 1940s, when you were probably invented. You are not a preconceived limb or a hollow extension where my soul could wander, but you were born to know the spot. I move, you move, I slow, you stir incredible senses under my derma. Is there a paradise underneath where my emotions get confused by your euphoric stroke? You may be just a half an arm length, but your reach is divine, so much so I may evolve and grow a hind leg just to patter my thrill on the floor. That's a great...
That was a very funny ending. Oh my gosh.
That was. Yeah, I love that, Ted. Thanks so much for sharing that. That was Ted Bernal Guevara with I Will Not Go Blind. That's a funny title, too, now. Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ted. Always a pleasure. Okay, let's go I'm going to wrap up the show. That's going to close out the Zoom. Let's go to the haiku for this week. And so I still haven't decided what to do with the haiku. These are the haiku I wrote this week. Some little events that we've gone through. This first one, we went to an art gallery. We went to the Broad. So art gallery, a collection of portraits in the crowd. There you go. Then a lot of proofreading because the new issue came up. So not an editor, proofreading. There you go. Humming out of tune, my bad tendon. And it does. I got this weird tendon thing. Yeah.
Has it been happening again?
No, because if I don't move it.
Maybe it just wanted you to write the haiku and now it's never going to hurt again.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, so anyway.
Yeah.
A couple more. Which side of the fence? Weeds, wildflowers. That's because at the cabin, the owners of the cabin sprayed, which I never do in Wrightwood. And so there's tons of dead, it's bare, and the neighbor's yard is full of wildflowers.
Charlotte is attempting to break into the show.
We might see a cameo.
A cameo.
Okay. And last, deserted highway, still waiting for the light to change. Those are my haiku.
Oh, those are really nice.
Well, thank you. Those are my haiku for the week. And now,
Charlotte.
well, let's bring Charlotte in.
Okay, Charlotte, come here. Charlotte's trying to bring the blanket too. Come here.
All right.
Come here. Look, we're live on the show.
Can you say hi to everybody?
Say hi. Say hi. Oh, that's nice, Charlotte.
Aw,
That's
okay.
nice. She's waving to you.
Yeah. All right. So that is going to wrap up the show for this week. Thanks everybody who joined us. Now, let's see. Next week's prompt is going to be right here. Write a poem. Write a poem with self-portrait in the title that features an odd bird.
A bird?
A
You
bird?
like birds?
Yeah. So that's your prompt for this week. Write a poem with self-portrait in the title that features an odd bird. Okay. And then next week's guest on the Rattlecast is going to be Oh, that was Leon Lee today. Next week's guest is going to be Susan Cohen. So Susan Cohen is a longtime journalist. She wrote for the Washington Post for a long time. Her most recent book is Democracy of Fire. And it's going to be fun talking about news and reporting and maybe the journalistic ethics. She teaches journalism, too, in addition to wonderful poetry. She was in the most recent issue of Rattle. That's Rattlecast number 239 with Susan Cohen, Sunday, May 18th, the regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And your poems with a self-portrait in the title that features an odd bird. Okay, so good luck with all that. Hope you have a great week in the meantime, and we'll talk to you later. Good night.
Good night.